Hello everyone, this is Captain Armstead. Today's module is going to be real-time resilience. The purpose of real-time resilience is to shut down counterproductive thinking in order to enable greater concentration and focus on the task at hand. As with all MRT lessons, it is important to remember that real-time resilience builds on the other skills you've previously learned. Real-time resilience helps to build optimism. RTR allows you to fight back against counterproductive thoughts with evidence by thinking optimistically and putting the situation in perspective. Real-time resilience allows you to stay task-focused and motivated. It is important to remember that RTR is an internal skill used to challenge your own counterproductive thinking. RTR is a skill that is used to get back in the game when counterproductive thoughts are interfering with your ability to conduct the task at hand. The skill is used to lower anxiety, anger, or other strong emotions enough for you to be able to perform under tough circumstances. It's extremely important to remember that real-time resilience is an internal skill that is not meant to be used to argue back against others. As with all MRT skills, it takes practice to perform correctly, but in this slide, we're going to go over a few examples of how to use the skill properly. In using techniques that were previously learned in energy management, some people might find it helpful to do deliberate breathing before starting real-time resilience in order to help lower anxiety. In the following example, I will use evidence, optimism, and put it in perspective to challenge counterproductive thoughts that are preventing me from getting a job done and being focused. In this example, we will imagine that I'm about to teach MRT for the first time. Some of my counterproductive thoughts are, I'm not prepared to teach today's MRT unit. So my real-time resilience response using evidence would be that that's not true because I spent a couple of hours reviewing the material for today and practiced the practical exercises. Another counterproductive thought that I could have could be that the participants won't understand any of the material that I'm teaching. In a real-time resilience response using optimism, I can tell myself that I know that the participants might not know how to use the particular skill immediately, but they will understand most of the material with practice. In a third counterproductive thought, I can think to myself the participants will ask me questions I can't answer. In a put it in perspective usage of real-time resilience responses, I can tell myself that if that happens, I'll admit that I don't know, and I can get back to them with an answer when we have our next lesson. It is important to remember that different strategies work for different people, so everyone should try all three of the strategies, evidence, optimism, and put it in perspective, to see which works best for you and to ensure that you have a variety of tools to use. Pitfall responses are common mistakes made by using real-time resilience. Using our previous example of it being my first time teaching MRT, some counterproductive thoughts that I could have could be that I'm not prepared to teach today's MRT unit. If I use the pitfall response, dismissing the grain of truth, I could tell myself I am totally prepared. In another example, I could say the participants won't understand the material. If I minimize the situation, I might tell myself, who cares if they don't understand? In another counterproductive thought, the participants could ask me questions that I can't answer. If I rationalize or excuse my contribution to the problem, I might tell myself in response, that's because the materials I was given aren't very good. In a final example, if I have the counterproductive thought, I'm going to blow this presentation, a weak response could just be, no, my presentation was fine. Pitfalls are problematic because they keep us from challenging counterproductive thoughts. Weak responses are responses that are vague and lack concrete data. Although they are not pitfalls, they are weak and can be made stronger by adding more specific information to the response. Whenever you are giving yourself any kind of real-time resilience response to some sort of situation that you're in, try to use your own gut check to determine whether or not you're falling into a pitfall. Sometimes what may sound like a pitfall to others passes the gut test for the individual using this skill. Just to summarize this slide, when learning real-time resilience, there are 4 common mistakes people make, and that's dismissing, minimizing, rationalizing, and making weak responses. In this slide, I will practice sentence starters and by using specific sentences to frame my real-time resilience response. These sentence starters help structure the response so that it is effective and not a pitfall or a weak response. Sentence starters are tools to effectively use the strategies of evidence, optimism, and put it in perspective. In the task at hand that I shall use for this example, I made a decision that negatively affects my soldiers, and now I have to lead a patrol. So the first counterproductive thought could be, they will never trust me again. If I use evidence to respond to that, then I'll say that's not completely true because I acted quickly once I realized my error. I took responsibility and I demonstrated leadership by correcting the situation. In our second example of counterproductive thoughts, I might feel the commander might think I'm useless. If I use real-time resiliency optimism to respond to this, I could say to myself a more optimistic way of seeing this is that he'll understand that I corrected the situation and will not make the mistake again. Counterproductive thought number 3, I'm never going to get promoted. If I put that in perspective, I might tell myself in response, the most likely implication is that I'll need to work extra hard to solidify my reputation, and I can talk with my first sergeant or other leaders to get additional advice. So the 3 sentence starters help you to structure your thinking so that you can craft effective real-time resilience responses to the counterproductive thoughts that are stopping you from performing the task at hand. As you review the points on this slide, it is important to remember that real-time resilience is used to fight counterproductive thoughts and focus on the task at hand. Real-time resilience is used to help build the MRT competency of optimism. Okay, now we'll do our check on learning. So what is the skill? Real-time resilience is an internal skill used to shut down counterproductive thinking and build motivation and focus on the task at hand. When do you use it? Use real-time resilience when your thoughts are distracting you from an immediate goal or task. How do you use it? Respond to your counterproductive thoughts in the heat of the moment by providing evidence against the thought, by generating a more optimistic way of seeing the thought, or by putting the thought in perspective. Watch out for common pitfalls and weaknesses. Again, in closing, optimism is the primary target of real-time resilience. This concludes the real-time resilience module.